Hello everyone, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video before starting the summary. Imagine you're a naive species in a magical fantasy world, but you're neither overpowered nor have a harem of worshippers. That's right, you have to learn and grow from scratch, otherwise you'll starve to death or be hunted by some random creature. Survival of the fittest means either you learn to grow and acquire new skills to excel, or you die. In You Die, we follow a group of 6 teenagers who suddenly find themselves in this world with no memory of how they got there. They also have no idea who they were before they found themselves in this world. We have a sweet and friendly girl called Yume, who happens to be the hunter, and the head sorceress called Shioru. Both girls have different personalities but are really nice. On the other side we have 4 boys, Monito, Ranta, Mogezo, and the main protagonist called Haruto. Monito plays the role of the priest but also the leader of the party. Bronzer can be a bit obnoxious when it comes to girls and is actually quite rude, so he is the most annoying one in the group according to his role. He is a dread knight. Then there's Mogezo. He's a warrior. His muscles and physical abilities are outstanding and he's the strongest member of the party. But don't let his looks fool you. Finally, there is the main protagonist named Haruhiro. He is an average person and an average guy. Nothing about him is outstanding, and when it comes to the guilds, he classifies himself as a thief, but he is honest. To be honest, if you knew who the guild master was, you would be a thief too. Now, as you can see, each of these 6 members has their own unique class in this world. Depending on your abilities, you can belong to one of 7 classes, which are warriors, mages, priests, hunters, knights of fear, paladins, and thieves. In our group, we have almost all of them, except for one paladin. Despite the fact that they couldn't even defeat a weak and pathetic goblin, Diversity Goblin Slayer isn't proud of it. How did this team become like this? Well, one morning while they were all having breakfast together and trying to figure out their next course of action, they realized that before all of this started, they really had no idea who they were and where they had come from. He followed the sounds of people and eventually came across a community of people, all in a similar situation. They had no idea how they got there. Things escalated pretty quickly from there. A person called Brittany, a volunteer soldier, he offers a 10-lesson program to anyone who wants to join his team. But you have to join groups. Also note that it's not a matter of choice. If you don't join, a charismatic person called Dreamji was the only one brave enough to argue with Brittany. Unfortunately, none of our main characters can form a strong party, so they form their own parties and, of course, the trainers of the volunteer soldier teams as Haruhito. At the suggestion of the Monia, they all start by debating and then join their respective class guilds to gain some experience. Haruhito here are the members of a sadistic but attractive guild called Barbara. He gets a week's training from her. He's a master of the Thieves Guild. He may be cruel, but trust me, you ask the children to teach you. After a week, everyone gets together and shares their own experiences. Ranta makes things uncomfortable. He makes an insensitive comment about Yoda's great body and gets scolded by Yumari for it. Okay, after regrouping, they go after the goblins, and as described before, it's all too much for them. Then on the 13th night, and that night they still haven't earned a single cent except for what they earned in the beginning, Haruhito and Monia sat together and talked while everyone slept. Their talk mostly about the local tavern and their relevant training experiences. But while this was going on, Haruhito noticed the red crescent moon in the sky. Not much, but where he was coming from at that moment, he could have sworn the moon wasn't red anyway. The story continues from day 14, and the group once again tries their hand against a random goblin. There was only one, but as before, the goblin proved worthy. How to hit an enemy. Hitol lands a critical hit while trying to protect himself, and Mogresol lands a seemingly fatal blow, but that's just when they think they've done it. The bag attacks Ranta, which infuriates Ranta. He takes the weapon and stabs the goblin repeatedly. The goblin is now dead. It should have been a moment of triumph and celebration, but it ends with everyone terrified because they've taken a life. The group decides to spend the rest of the day at leisure, and when they're all reunited, they go shopping at the local market. They watch a beautiful sunset together, all sharing a true bond. But then sadly, after the children have had their bath and gone to sleep, Ranta tries to sneak into the girls' bathroom. The others try to stop him, But things go wrong, and as always the plot escalates. Then the other three boys apologize for what happened, but Ronta continues to be a troublemaker, and so Yume gives him a big slap on the face. Now this anime is serious about what it does, and it works. Because of the peeping, it has become strange. The girls and boys barely get by, spending their days in the rain, having no choice but to wash and wear the same clothes every day, and still not finding much to eat. Things don't look good, but then they try their luck in an empty ruin and end up finding a sleeping goblin. They kill it, earning them 4 silver coins. But after that things start to get better. With some tactics they manage to kill a lot of goblins, and not only do they get food and clothes, but they also improve their weapons. Arahito is very happy to wear this, which shows how things are in the real world. How hard it is. Later that night, Yume and Shodo talk, and Shodo encourages her to talk to the boys. Back in the boys' room, Haruto says that Monito appreciates his leadership and is grateful to have him as a friend. 23 of them come to Grimgar. The next morning, Monito has a much-needed chat with Shioru. After the balance, they all go back to the same ruins to hunt some more. At first, everything goes well, and Minato even talks about how they are growing as a team. But after a short break, they encounter goblins that are far more skilled and powerful than the ones they dealt with before. He is in critical condition but recovers thanks to Monea's healing skills. But the situation was too much for them, so he tells everyone to retreat. Unfortunately, he is shot as they flee, but instead of blocking their escape, he keeps running through the pain and finds safety in a random forest. When they get there, he starts to lose consciousness, and unfortunately he can't even use his healing power because he used it on Haruto before. They ran to the priest's guild to see if they could heal him, but it was too late. The Monea was already dead, so it was impossible to bring him back to life. And they were all devastated. Of course they were, because they knew someone close to them, and you don't fully realize the reality of death until you've lost your leader. At the suggestion of the guild master, they organize a proper funeral for their leader and rightly mourn the loss of their leader, or should I say friend. The funeral will cost them 100 copper, 50 for cremation and 50 for burial. Emotions run high. At first Ronza says he has already forgotten the death of their leader, but after a well-deserved slap he comes to his senses, and then the three of them. While the men are drinking in the tavern, Rhonda starts to blame Haruto for Monea's death, which starts a highly emotional argument, which is then stopped by Mogotso, and just then an ordinary man named Kikawa intervenes and explains how the goblins instinctively go after priests, because they understand that a party cannot survive without a priest. So Kikawa introduces them to a beautiful priest named Mary, who they hire. But unlike Monito, she's not the type to get along easily with others. To put it simply, she's like the ice queen you often see in romantic comedy anime. Anyway, they all go back to the same ruins to hunt goblins, and Mary's personality actually becomes a problem here. They wonder what to do about it, but he doesn't care at all. Haruto later in the tavern how we should handle the situation while thinking. Renji appears. Remember the man holding his hand? He originally chose the strongest people for his party, expressed his feelings, and even offered Haruto a gold coin so that his party could regain a foothold. But he refused the offer that same night while Shiodo is in the bathroom. Yume collapses in front of Hawairo and starts to cry as she points out how they turned into a real party with the Monea around them. Arahito hugs her and comforts her. But when Shioru looked through the window he could only see a certain angle, and so he realized that something inappropriate had happened. Fortunately they sooner or later corrected the misunderstanding, but this made Ranta jealous. The two odd girls then tried to talk to the boys about how they should make Mary more welcome, but as expected such relationships were not established. Within a day, they returned to the ruins to kill the goblins, killing 3 of them, but also suffering serious wounds. Mary heals Mogezo, but refuses to do the same for Ranta's brewers, which is understandable. I think so, but when Haruto tries to clear the air, Mary silences his words. As time goes by, the chemistry of their group becomes more and more lopsided. When they see Mary talking to her leader, Team Orion, and in the tavern, their curiosity reaches its peak. When she starts to doubt herself and her abilities, she goes down the rabbit hole, but just then she has a vision in which Monito tells her not to doubt herself until the next day. They go shopping, where Mogezo buys a helmet, But when it's time to eat, Mary goes with everyone else. When they later speak to a member of Team Orion, they find out that when Mary first started out, she healed every little thing. But unfortunately, this was not in the best interest of the group, because once, while fighting a stubborn creature in a crayon mine, she actually needed his help, but that his magic had long since run out, and therefore he explains that 3 of his friends died when they could have been saved. His arms were a very traumatic experience for him, so much so that he could no longer work at the same party. Hearing this, Haruhiro and the others are convinced that they will continue to try to be friends with Shiorun no matter how long it takes. But even though Ranta is skeptical, Ranta's behavior is nothing out of the norm. Hearing him say this, Haruhito wonders if the other members are neglecting their feelings. The next day, things get worse, but while everyone is there, Haruhito tells Mary about their previous priest, his personality, and how he handled things. Haruhito tells Mary that he considers her his friend, and almost everyone supports him. This brings a small but sincere look to Mary's face. Yes, we're finally getting somewhere. The team then head to the same ruins to kill. While chasing the goblin, Haruhiro also improves his skills and learns new things, especially how to move in order to kill goblins at night. Haruhiro once again has a monotonous vision as he develops a foresight that allows him to see that this time he is proud of how much his old friends have grown up to this point. So much time has passed since they ended up in Grimgar. Then everyone gathers in a circle and swears that they will not let any more of their friends die. Mary says she will protect them. The team's morale goes through the roof. They realize that it is time to hunt down the goblins that killed Monito. The goblins leave. They shiver in a converted building. May was the first to attack. She decapitated a goblin with her arrow. They had a good start and even looked to have it in the bag at one point, but just then Mary is shot in the back by Haruhito. This gives everyone flashbacks of Monio's death, but he survives because he hasn't used all of his healing capacity, and now that they've defeated the goblins, they finally earn enough money to buy the proper volunteer soldier badges. They're no longer just trainees. They all visit Monio's grave, and Shihoto sheds tears as he leaves a badge on his grave as snow begins to fall, and Haruhito tells Mary that there are wounds that even the greatest healer cannot heal, implying that it wasn't his fault that his friends died. It wasn't anyone's fault. This speech lifts a heavy burden from Mary's chest, and for once she honors us all with her smile. Once again, everyone takes a day off to relax and rest. Haruhito and Mogezo start by making bread. Shioru feeds the pigeons, and then shows his gratitude to Haruhiro as they watch the sunrise together and then have tea with Mary, while Bronte watches Yugo rock climbing, goes fishing, and that same night in the tavern, Kikawa tells them that the goblins in the ruins of Damaro are more wary of humans than they used to be. Haruhiro then says that they should go to the Korean mine, but of course avoid the infamous cobalt called Death. Mary excuses herself after hearing all this and walks away for a minute, but Haruhito catches up with her and explains that she lost her friends in the exact same place and needs some fresh air, but she is still as determined as the rest of the party to try this hunting ground. Haruhiro has a training session with his wonderful mentor and tells him what he sees during a fight and where to attack the vision of light that tells them they need to go into the Korean mine and defeat the 3 men. The mentor explains that this is normal for thieves, but not seen very often, and so the party enters the Korean mine and defeats 3 people. That was the beginning. The further they went into the cave, the easier it was to defeat the Comolds. Ranta was particularly aggressive and managed to defeat one of them, but he was also a bit rude to the other members. In the end, they defeated 5 of them and obtained a large number of talismans, which they could now sell for a profit. That night, however, Haruhito was once again seen doubting himself. He wondered if he was a good leader. Later, Toronto asked Ranta why he had been so reckless with his own teammates. Bronte tells him that he only used 1 cobalt. The next day, they return to the Korean mine to defeat a few more goblins. They pulverize 2 of them, but then go to a farmland within the mine. They enter it and see the dangerous cobalt death points and quickly hide. Mary was about to vomit after seeing them because of course she did. The person who took the lives of his 3 friends loses consciousness and begins to have a dream in which his old friends are with him. Fortunately, at some point he hears their voices and finally wakes up, does his best to regain his composure. and then leads everyone to a safe place. Because of course he already knows the entrances and exits of this place, the temple, but this only causes Mary to remember the traumatic experience, and as if that wasn't enough, she's being chased by 3 undead. Yes, that's right. They're the reincarnated corpses of her dead friends. But unfortunately the situation is so dire at the time that she can't even give them a proper burial while everyone works hard to keep themselves safe. Mary organizes attacks so that she can cleanse them one by one, and when she cleanses someone, their spirit appears for a moment, touching Mary, and she says goodbye to her friends before turning into ash. But just then the death stains appear, and they have to retreat immediately. While running in the cave, the surface beneath them cracks, Haruito falls, but surprisingly, Ronta was there in time to grab his hand. Haruhiro survives but falls in his place. He was now deep in the cobalt zone, but later tells Haruito to just run, that he will survive on his own, and so Haruito immediately decides to move on for now, so they can all find him later. Meanwhile, Bronzer tries his best to fight off the death stains and the others so that he can get back to them before they have a chance to rescue him. Unexpectedly, he finds his way out and escapes the clutches of the death stains. When he reaches the farmland, he becomes irrationally tired. Luckily, Haruhiro notices him, and they reunite. And now that they are all together, all that remains is to escape from the Cyrene mine. Unfortunately, the death stains follow them. Unfortunately, the death spots follow Ranta and manage to find them and block their path. But in the heat of the moment, Haruito aggressively uses his scarf to strangle the death spots and falls straight into a pit. Death alone at Death Point Jnin has already accepted it, but he's still ready to fight bravely until his last breath. But he's not ready to fight again. He saw a light that told him to attack the creature's left eye with grace from the movements of the point of death. The battle lasted only a few minutes, but by the time he had defeated the death spots he was so exhausted from the effort that when he woke up he was unconscious. She wonders if she's in heaven because there's an angel sitting next to her, but it's only Mary. The two of them then leave, although fully recovered, and the other party members realize that their leader is still alive. They're happy to see that it's not just about defeating Ranta's death points. A happy one in the form of giving him a reminder that they've won 30 gold coins, not a bag full of gold and silver coins. Gold is 100 silver coins, and a silver coin is 100 copper coins. Right, our boys and girls have finally achieved great things. When he goes to the tavern, Renji apologizes for how he gave him the gold coin. His friends are dead and Haruto visits Monia's grave. He went back and there's a once again. I'm once RJ and I saw it, and his old mate told him Haruhiro said that he really grew up as a man, and then he became full of life. Expression, and he's back with his mates. And every day begins a tremendous new chapter.